and welcome to 3Q, where I interview industry professionals for just 15 minutes by asking three powerful questions. I'm your host, Rachel Vogel, and joining me for tonight's episode is JP Morray, the CEO and founder of Interlude Studios. JP founded Interlude Studios with the dream of building a multifaceted entertainment company that enables culturally definitive artists to deliver their philosophies and visions to the world. His journey started managing artists in his hometown of St. Louis until he decided to dive headfirst into the music industry with nothing but a backpack, cheap round ticket to LA, and a profound love of music and people. So, JP, great to have you on the podcast. How's it going?
Going great, Rachel. Happy Friday to you. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you on. All right. Well, with that, are you ready to jump into the first question?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Imagine for a second you're sitting down with your 25-year-old self. What one piece of advice would you give him on a personal note? And what one piece of advice would you give him from a business perspective?
That's a great question. I feel like a lot has happened from 25 to now. And it would be hard to answer. I'm gonna do my best to answer split between personal and business because I've lived such a entrepreneurial life thus far that personal and business just coexist so much so. But I would say from a business standpoint, I think for a long time in my early 20s, I struggled with the idea of what everyone else was doing and also within that what everyone else was thinking about what I was doing, and as whether it's colleagues or peers or even what other artists are doing and the successes they're having, and sort of playing the comparison game. It's a cliche, but I would say that comparison is certainly the thief of joy, but it's also, I believe, it's the thief of focus and somewhat sanity in this business.
So true.
So I would respond more particularly on the business front with that. And you hear people say like, oh, put the blinders on and like don't worry about what's to your left or to your right, and just run your race. And I think that's being 27, being almost 28 now, and having had a lot of experiences professionally in the last 2 to 3 years, that I think maybe some don't have until they're a little bit later on. I certainly believe that rings true. So that would be that. I think that would be my answer. Personally, take care of yourself. I didn't take care of myself for a long time, and especially when you're in a business like music or entertainment in general, it's such a long race, and you have to be able to to maintain a healthy level of performance and discipline and focus, and you have to be able to ride the lows just as well as the highs. And I think being out in Los Angeles I got out here when I was 19, 20, and being out here from 20 to 25, it was very easy to glorify late nights and early mornings and no sleep, and oh, I don't have time to go take care of my body, or I don't have time to eat food. Like I think that I just learned when I hit 25, it was like, man, I started to take care of myself, and everything got better.
Mhm.
I would say I think that's that would be my best answer, personally speaking, is just take care of yourself.
Yeah, super important. The mix of like being super entrepreneurial, like you were talking about earlier, leads me to another question that I had.
Mhm.
So I know, yeah, you toe the line between like being a creative versus being an executive, and how do
Mhm.
you find the balance between both? And does that make it easier or more difficult when you're managing relationships with clients?
That's a great question. It's funny because I think where my skill sets sit are very much it covers a spectrum of creativity that may not be too technical, but more so intuitive. And then from a business sense, I think the creativity is primarily expressed through whether it be a deal making process or whether it be through, I think it's primarily expressed through the way I communicate with people in email fashion, text fashion, speaking face to face. I think that's probably my one of my strongest suits. So I think that the creativity expresses itself in various ways. Sometimes it can be more literal when I'm speaking to an artist client and relate to them on a more artistic level. or being able to, reference forms of art or outside of music to help an artist like, develop maybe a new perspective about something. And that's sort of, what I mean by a creative expressing myself through the lens of an executive, because I do consume, art pretty intentionally. And I think that you have in order to understand the artists that you're working with. And I've always considered my artists in my own way. I mean, I got into this business primarily working, uh, designing clothes and being behind camera and trying to find my own path in it, as an artist. But I think that, I couldn't ignore my knack for business and my knack for people. And so the combination of bringing that all together is sort of how I say I figured out that management was the original path for me. But, I called the company Interlude Studios with 7 years ago, 8 years ago, with the foresight that we were going to always be multifaceted, because I knew that I wanted to be multifaceted. And music's sort of the beginning. And I think we need like, my goal is to conquer music. But I'd also like to parlay that into working in film, as well,
Mhm.
and other mediums of the arts. I think that some of the greatest artists of our generation and of all time have spanned the various art forms that exist in our sector. And I intend to do that. But I think, working backwards from, I can't really remember the exact original question, but the creativity component and how it lives, and within the executive realm is just like a spectrum, I think, and it just like comes out at various times and when
Mhm.
it's needed. And yeah.
Awesome. Before we jump into the next question, tell us a little bit more about Interlude and what was kind of the defining factor that led you to create the company.
So we're primarily a management company. We are now a record company as well. That began early last year, and we're also a production company. So it started in officially in January of 2017, but it was really seeded all throughout the year of 2016. I founded it with two close friends of mine, Jacob Krupp, who operates as our COO, and Cam Nisbet, who operates as our CCO. We were all at very different points in life 7 years ago, but we all knew that we wanted to build a company together, and we all knew that we had complementary skill sets. And it started. I got into the music business in 2016. I took a flight out to Los Angeles, and I just had a backpack and one pair of jeans, two t-shirts, and I crashed on a buddy's couch who was an actor and had just moved out the month prior. He's about 6, 7 years older than me. And at the time, I was just trying to model and act myself. I was 19, and, I didn't really have a whole lot of direction, but I knew I disliked the college I was going to. I knew that I disliked the status quo. I was formerly an athlete. I played soccer. So I think I was just like on a search for some sort of fulfillment, where you lose that if once you stop competing, and I needed to regain that. And so yeah, I ended up crashing on at this house, and it ended up being full with a couple record producers. So I ended up spending time in the studio, accidentally, and at that point I loved music, obviously. And I just met some really cool people. I brought it back with me. And I started working with an artist by the name of Anthony Russo. Many may know him, many may not. But he was from St. Louis as well, and we essentially, I was creative directing for him. I was sort of co-managing for him with another kid from St. Louis. And then on one of those trips in late 2016, we went back out together twice. On the second time, he got connected and met with Jamil Davis of the Rebels Group, who at the time was tour managing Drake and managing G-Eazy. He still tour manages Drake, and he's CEO and co-founder of the Rebels Group. And they met Anthony and moved Anthony out immediately, while I was still back in school, enrolled in school, and I couldn't really do anything about it. So they moved him out, and I sort of got left out of the picture that January of 2017, which essentially left me with no choice but to start Interlude and start my own thing. outside of what I was trying to build within Anthony's career. And so it ended up being such a blessing, even though I was, bummed that I was still in school and couldn't make the big move and be working with people of Jamil's stature right away. But everything sort of ended up coming full circle anyways. So that year of 2017, when we start, we, we found our first three artists in our artist Miles, who was recently we used to be signed to Elektra before they merged with 300. Our artist Christian French, and our artist Austin. I refer to them sometimes as our discovery artists because we discovered them all in the same year and then really learned a lot from 2017 to 2021. Once they all sort of went through their development phases and they all signed with major labels, 3 years later, at varying times. But that year 2017, that inciting incident of like not being able to move with the team that I was working with previously really just made me put a flag in the ground and do our own thing. And so that was sort of the inciting incident that led to the creation of the company. And then I moved to LA just a short 6 months later, and I had dropped out of school actually that same month because I was so upset that I couldn't make that move. It was almost out of spite. I was like, told my mom, I was like, I'm clicking the button unenroll in all my classes, and I did that, and I ended up re-enrolling in LA Film School in Los Angeles and finishing online for which worked out because of COVID. And yeah, so I ended up finishing, but yeah, there was a good like 8 months there that was just like I was really just starting everything and really trying to figure it out. And yeah, I would sit in my apartment down in the where I was living in Columbia, Missouri, where I was going to school, and I would just call people in Los Angeles and New York and Atlanta and Chicago and wherever I could. And it was just like really, really, when you're from Missouri, there's no sense of like what the music industry is like or no sense of what to do. And so yeah, it was really, really trial and error. But yeah, that's sort of the origin story, if you will.
Wow. Well, everything definitely happens for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, next question. Every industry has its dirty little secrets, and we all know that it's no different in the music industry. Sometimes people think that's a bad thing, but it's not always the case. Sometimes they can be good. What's one secret you would like to share with our listeners about the industry?
That's an interesting question. A secret about the music industry. This isn't a bad one, but it's not, it certainly is not, it's not everything you expect it to be once you're really in it. And it's funny, I say that and I don't really remember, it was so long ago, I don't really remember what I expected it to be like, but I still think that certainly rings true. The secret though, I think that's a really good question. I'm sorry.
Just
Okay,
just wait till we get to the next question.
okay. Let me sit with it. I think this rings true with any business. I really do. But I just think like I think loyalty is the biggest cheat code in the music business. I think that there's so little. I think that you realize how few and far between loyalty is in entertainment and music as well. And I just think that I do think that loyalty is sort of like a secret sauce, if you will, in that like you can go really far. What's that phrase? It's like if you want to go fast but not far, go alone. If you want
Hmm.
to go far and sort of be around for a long time, go together. I think I probably butchered that, but
I know what you mean.
yeah, I think that's a good secret and something maybe like I think people getting into it. There's a lot of ego sometimes initially, and want or desire to be the person or be the face or yeah, and I just like I remember I probably had some of that early on, but I've always started with people that I cared about, and we've just really maintained and continued to move. And it's like having a company now for 7 years that survived things like COVID and many highs and many lows. It's I think the loyalty component is what's gotten us to this point and what will get us through a decade and 15 years. And I think loyalty is a wonderfully good secret that sometimes is right in front of people's faces, but also sometimes easy to ignore. So yeah, that's my answer.
I feel like that also applies not just to like executive level, but like your relationship with artists. That's
Oh, for
something
sure.
that's very rare, surprisingly,
Oh,
but
for sure,
that
for
it's
sure,
super
for sure.
important to build that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've had our experience with artists as well, especially managers, because, managers can work for 10 years on something and then get fired and then
Mhm.
maybe have a contract, maybe have a sunset. Like it can be a really risky business, but we've had a couple experiences like that where it was best to move forward without said artist. And I've learned to appreciate those situations because I think that I'm a big advocate of like the pure play, and it's like, okay, clearly, like, this isn't working out for you. And artists are such unique individuals and have such complex personalities because they're artists. They have a lot going on in their minds and their hearts and their and so it's sometimes it can be hard to really level with them and understand them, and really vice versa. It's hard for them to sometimes understand you and
Mhm.
your perspective. But yeah, I do think that, like, most, like, pretty much all of my relationships with my clients have maintained a really strong loyalty. And I think it's just like you sort of have to lead by example in that sometimes. And it ends up working out. So yeah,
For
good
sure.
point.
Last question. Throughout your career thus far, I can only imagine you've been asked plenty of questions, whether it was for industry conferences, the media, or maybe even a promotion. But throughout all of those interviews and all of those questions, there has to be one that you've never been asked but would have liked to. So, what is that question and what would be your answer?
Why do you do what you do? I don't think I'm asked that. I ask myself that here and there. And sorry if that sounds super boring.
No,
Um,
that's a great question.
but why do you do it? I think I find myself asking an artist that because I think it's so important to lead with why you do something, because I think your purpose is directly correlated with that question. And I think maybe I'm asking it now, and I want to be asked it now because maybe I need a reminder. Um, and I think I saw something the other day that reminded me of it, but it's like, if you got $1 billion tomorrow, would you still be doing what you're doing? And I thought to myself, and I was like, yeah, I would be. I would be, and I would just have a little more freedom to expedite certain things and achieve certain things, or put people in a position of this place or whatever. But I would still be doing it, and the why I would do it, and why do I do it, I guess I should say. I don't think it's such an exact answer, but I think just being involved with great people and being involved in the arts and being able to push people forward. My biggest thing is the people that we work with, whether it's an artist or whether it's, a staff member. I think I seek the most fulfillment in operating and working with people. My mother was a lot, it was and still is a lot like that. And people to me are and getting close with people are certainly like the reason that it just makes me tick. It just makes me go. And I think that people are a project as well. And I love seeing the evolution of people year over year over year, looking at some of the individuals that I've worked with for the 7 years. I mean, some of our clients like Christian French or Austin, Miles, and then my partners, like, you look at what it was then, or you look at people you met 3 years ago and you look at them now, or just peers. Maybe even you see them on Instagram, like, and you're not like close to them. But for me, particularly, it's the people that I can touch and work with. And even for myself, like, it's everyone around you is sort of like a mirror in that. And so I think I just love the progression, the development of people, and the fact that, like, our we're doing that while orbiting what is the music business, and sort of crafting ourselves from that is it's fascinating. And I think the why I do it is to continue to be able to work with awesome people and see people grow and evolve in their lives, and but do that from the lens of, hey, we're working in in music, and we get to see music change people's lives, and and do this for a living. And I think there's a quote that says like man is successful between when he wakes up and goes to sleep. He does what he wants to do. And I think that's always been my aim. I'm sure there are things that I don't like to do within my job, like registering splits for a song coming out or something along those lines. But, holistically speaking, I am doing what I I want to do between the time, my head comes off the pillow in the morning, I get back in bed at night. And so I think that would be my answer.
Well, about time we close out this episode, but JP, thanks again for joining me.
Appreciate you having me. I hope I did decently here.
You did wonderful.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
to everybody listening, hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Stay tuned for next week of 3Q, where I interview industry professionals for just 15 minutes by asking three powerful questions. See you next time.